a corrupt officer, a fearless lawyer, and one courtroom that changed everything. Power. That was the first word people thought of whenever Officer Brandon Hale walked into a room. He didn't need to speak. He didn't need to shout. The way he stood, broad shoulders, chin high, badge shining, told everyone exactly who he believed he was. Not just a police officer, but the officer everyone feared. His uniform, his heavy boots on the floor, even the cold stare he carried like a weapon, all sent one message: I'm untouchable. And for a long time, people believed it. Brandon had spent years building that reputation, feeding it, protecting it. He used his position not to serve, but to intimidate. Traffic stops turned into threats if someone dared question him. Minor arguments became arrests if someone challenged his authority. And any complaint made against him, somehow, someway, it always disappeared before reaching the chief's desk. To Brandon Hale, the streets were his kingdom. Anyone who crossed him, even by mistake, was taught a lesson they wouldn't forget. Nobody pushed back. Nobody dared, because they all knew what he thought of himself. A man above consequences. A man above the law. A man whose badge made him bulletproof. But life has a way of correcting arrogance. Because one ordinary afternoon, sunny, calm, nothing special, he made the biggest mistake of his career. A mistake so small he didn't even notice it when it happened. A mistake he thought he would handle like all the others. He stopped the wrong car. He barked at the wrong person. He twisted the wrong story. And most importantly, he underestimated the wrong woman. Brandon thought it would be like every other encounter. Another citizen he could scare into silence. Another report he could write however he wanted. Another day where his power protected him, just like always. But this time, his confidence was misplaced. This time, his arrogance was his downfall. Because the woman he arrested wasn't just another driver. She wasn't someone who would break under pressure or crumble under fear. Her name was Ava Brooks, and she was everything Brandon Hale wasn't prepared for. Smart, calm, fearless, and armed with knowledge far stronger than any badge. And as Brandon would soon learn, the moment he crossed paths with Ava Brooks, his era of being untouchable was already over. Ava Brooks wasn't someone who caused trouble. In fact, trouble avoided her. She was a respected lawyer, sharp-minded, soft-spoken, and known for dismantling arguments without ever raising her voice. Judges admired her professionalism, clients trusted her, and opponents feared her intellect. But none of that mattered to Brandon Hale. When he looked at her that afternoon, he didn't see a lawyer, a professional, or even a person deserving respect. He saw only one thing: a woman who dared to question him. It began with a routine drive home after work. Ava was listening to soft music, reviewing her case notes in her mind, when flashing red and blue lights filled her rearview mirror. She pulled over smoothly, confused but calm. Brandon approached her window with the inflated confidence of someone used to authority going unchallenged. "Broken taillight," he said flatly. Ava blinked. "Officer, I just had my car inspected last week." "Are you sure?" That was it. That single, respectful question was all it took for his ego to snap. His expression darkened instantly. "Step out of the vehicle." Ava kept her composure, even as her instincts told her something was wrong. She stepped out, hands visible, voice steady. But Brandon wasn't interested in explanations. He circled her car aggressively, pretending to search for a problem that didn't exist. Then he searched her, without permission, without cause, and without a trace of professionalism. When Ava finally said, "Officer, may I have your badge number?" Brandon's reaction was explosive. He slammed his handcuffs onto her wrists and said, "Asking too many questions. That's obstruction." Ava didn't resist. She didn't shout. She simply watched him, studying the way he twisted every detail, twisting the situation into a false narrative right in front of her. She knew the law better than he ever would. She knew what he was doing was illegal from the moment he opened his mouth. But she also knew something else. Men like Brandon only understood consequences when they arrived in unexpected ways. As Brandon smirked while filling out the false report, confident he controlled the outcome, Ava spoke with quiet certainty. "This isn't going the way you think." Brandon laughed. He truly believed he was untouchable. He thought she was just another nobody who would be too afraid to fight back. But the truth was already working against him. Because Ava Brooks wasn't powerless. She was prepared. And more importantly, She had recorded everything. The courtroom was packed, so full that people were standing along the walls, leaning forward just to catch a glimpse of what was about to unfold. The air buzzed with whispers, tension, and curiosity. This wasn't an ordinary hearing. Everyone knew the name Brandon Hale. People knew him for years. Some admired him, believing he was a tough officer doing a tough job. Most feared him, whispering stories of intimidation and unchecked authority. But everyone, absolutely everyone, wanted to see what would happen today. The first to enter was Ava Brooks. She glided into the courtroom with quiet confidence, her navy suit crisp, her expression calm and unreadable. She walked with the steady assurance of someone who knew the truth was on her side. Even before she sat down, a hush fell over the room. Moments later, Brandon Hale strode in. His swagger filled the space before he did. Chin high, shoulders back, his badge catching the light. He still believed he held all the power. He smirked at familiar faces and nodded like a man ready to win a battle he'd already won in his mind. Leaning toward a fellow officer, Brandon whispered with a cocky grin, "This will be over in 5 minutes." But those 5 minutes would change everything. As the judge called the court to order, people expected Ava to walk to the defendant's table, the seat for the accused. Instead, she walked right past it without hesitation. She stepped confidently to the prosecutor's side, placing her files neatly on the table. The entire room gasped. Brandon froze mid-breath. His face drained of color. His confident smirk crumbled into confusion, then panic. The judge greeted Ava with genuine respect. The attorneys nodded at her with admiration. And in that instant, Brandon finally understood. He wasn't dealing with a random woman. He wasn't dealing with someone he could intimidate. He was dealing with Ava Brooks, a top civil rights lawyer known for exposing officers who believed they were above the law. And she wasn't here to defend herself. She was here to prosecute him. For the first time in his career, Brandon felt real fear. His hands trembled slightly, something he tried desperately to hide. But he couldn't hide from what came next. Ava walked to the courtroom monitor, pressed a single button, and let the truth speak for itself. Brandon's voice filled the room. Sharp, threatening, undeniable. His abuse of power, his lies, his intimidation. Every word he thought would be buried was now echoing through the courtroom. Everything he controlled outside, everything he hid behind his badge, was exposed in front of everyone. And there was no turning back. As the recording played, every second felt heavier than the last, each moment chipping away at Brandon's confidence like a hammer striking glass. His own voice echoed through the courtroom speakers. Angry, commanding, dripping with arrogance. "Step out of the car." The tone alone was enough to make people shift uncomfortably in their seats. Next came his harsh threats when Ava calmly asked for his badge number. Then his mocking laughter. Cold, cruel, the sound of a man who believed he could never be held accountable. And finally, the false accusations he invented so casually, as if ruining someone's life was just part of his routine. With every word, the room grew quieter. The courtroom was silent, dead silent, the kind of silence that makes your heart beat louder in your ears. No one dared to move. No one dared to interrupt. It felt like the entire room was collectively witnessing the downfall of a man who built his career on fear. Even the officers sitting in the back, many of whom once respected Brandon, lowered their heads in embarrassment. Some shook their heads. Others stared at the floor. They couldn't defend what they were hearing. They didn't even try. And then, Ava spoke. Her voice was calm, steady, controlled, yet every word carried the weight of truth. "Your Honor," she began, her eyes focused and unwavering. This man believed his badge allowed him to violate citizens' rights. He believed he was untouchable, but no one is above the law. The sentence sliced through the tension in the room like a blade. Brandon flinched, as if each word struck him physically. For the first time, he looked small, not dangerous, not powerful, just cornered. Ava didn't stop there. One by one, she revealed piece after piece of evidence. Timestamps that proved he lied. Dashcam footage that contradicted his report. Witness statements from people he thought were too scared to speak. Old misconduct complaints that had been quietly buried. It was like watching a wall collapse brick by brick. Brandon opened his mouth, desperate to defend himself, but the judge cut him off sharply. "Officer Hale, you will remain silent." At that moment, Everything he once controlled slipped through his fingers. He wasn't feared. He wasn't respected. And he definitely wasn't untouchable. He was exposed. Exposed by the very woman he tried to intimidate into silence. Ava turned her head toward him. Just once. Not with anger. Not with revenge in her eyes. But with something far more devastating. Disappointment. Softly, she spoke the words that would haunt him long after the trial ended. Power isn't meant to be abused. You chose the wrong person to bully. And everyone in the courtroom knew she was absolutely right. After hours of testimony, cross-examinations, and undeniable evidence, the courtroom finally grew still. Everyone held their breath as the judge lifted the verdict sheet. The tension was so heavy it felt like the walls themselves were waiting. At last, the judge spoke. Brandon Hale is found guilty. A ripple moved through the room. Shock, satisfaction, justice, all mixing together. The judge continued, voice firm and unwavering. Guilty of wrongful arrest. Guilty of abuse of authority. Guilty of filing a false report. Guilty of violating civil rights. Each charge was a hammer striking down the last pieces of the false image Brandon had built around himself. He swallowed hard, unable to hide the fear in his eyes. Then came the moment no one expected would ever happen. The bailiff stepped forward, reached for Brandon's badge, and removed it from his uniform. The same badge he held like a shield. The same badge he used like a weapon. The same badge he believed made him invincible. Now it was gone. Taken from him in front of a packed courtroom. Witnesses, officers, townspeople, everyone who once feared him now watched silently as the symbol of his untouchable power disappeared. As officers escorted him toward the back, handcuffs clinking softly, the town felt something it hadn't felt in years. Relief. Not revenge. Not celebration. Just relief. The storm was finally over. And Ava? She didn't pump her fist in victory. She didn't smile triumphantly. She didn't take a single moment to brag. Instead, she calmly gathered her files, closed her briefcase, thanked the judge politely, and walked out of the courtroom with the same quiet confidence she carried in with her. Outside, chaos waited for her. Reporters, cameras, microphones, all pushing forward. Ms. Brooks, how does it feel to take down such a powerful officer? Did you expect to win? What message do you have for the community? Ava paused, looked at them with gentle composure, and spoke words that silenced the noise instantly. Justice isn't about power. It's about doing what's right, even when someone thinks they're untouchable. And just like that, she walked away. One woman, one recording, one courtroom. That was all it took to bring down a man who spent years believing he ruled the world. And on that day, everyone learned a lesson. When you use power to hurt others, the truth will always find its way out. And sometimes, the person you choose to bully ends up being the wrong one. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more powerful, emotional, and jaw-dropping stories every week. And make sure to turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next twist-filled episode. See you in the next video.